Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Virtual GM. Today, Cody and I review 4 best practices and tips right out the gate for rate and revenue management. Enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to another episode of Virtual GM. You can see it is hot outside today. It's so hot, Spencer and I opted to wear sunglasses inside.
We had to.
You wouldn't believe the sun, the power of the sun in southern Utah. It's a pretty serious deal here.
It's cooled down to a crisp and chilly 108 today.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm wearing my jacket.
It's freezing.
It's cold out.
Freezing out there. In all seriousness, it was like 117 this week. It was just absurd.
I saw Zion National Park posted a video where they put cookies like dough on a cookie sheet and they
Like
made
in a
cookies.
dash?
Yeah, on a dashboard.
No way.
Yeah.
I've seen people do that in Phoenix, but instead of with cookies, it was those bacon.
Yep, they made cookies in the windshield.
Yuck.
And the dashboard inside of a windshield of a car.
Man, could you imagine? That's just absurd.
No, yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
but we've got some exciting stuff for you guys today. So today we're actually going to give you the 4 tips to maximize your revenue. So we'll start with a segue as normal, but we wanted to just punch right into the value for you guys, and we're really excited to share it. Nothing's more important for our hotels than revenue. That's what makes the world go round. So we're excited to talk about some ways you guys can maximize that, and then I'll just kick it over to Spencer, and he can start our segue.
Yeah, so we'll start with personal. This is something that's coming up. Cody and I are getting ready to go to Florida, and our trip is going to be really great. For me personally, I just love going to Florida. I think the property that we manage there, the Sweetwater Inn in Gainesville, Florida, it's absolutely magic. And then Cody and I go down to Bitac, which is in Bonita Springs. But in between those two, I actually get to sneak away. My girlfriend is going to Fort Lauderdale at the same time to visit her brother's dad. And so we're going to go down and I'll spend a night in Fort Lauderdale and have some fun with them. So I'm really excited about that.
That's great.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And then my business was our Kanab presentation. I thought that was great. We went to Kanab. We gathered all the hotel owners and GM owners that could be available. And we gave a couple presentations between Vibrant. So I spoke first about digital marketing and advertising and about the opportunity to really present yourself in a new way that 2023 guest is going to want to respond to you. We talked about the new law of 7, which if you didn't listen to our episode with Sean Cannell, that was episode 33. Be sure to check that out because he talks about how that's basically defunct. And then Breck gave a really great rate strategy presentation that I thought was great. And that's kind of what prompted today's episode. Yeah. So those are mine.
Well, and really the whole purpose of that meeting in Kanab, for those of you listening, Kanab is on the east side of Zion, and it's this incredible town with an amazing community around it, but they just have never, as a community, held their value in rates.
Yeah.
And so you can, in fact, on the way up there, Kayla, Spencer's girlfriend, was like, why are you guys going to do this? And he was like, you can book a room in Kanab right now for like $54. And she was like, no, you can't. And he pulled it up. I pulled up Expedia or something. And sure enough.
I think she just Googled it. We were on the rocking chairs in the morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I said under $70 was the number. And she Googled it and she's like, oh, wow, you're totally right. Yes, you can.
And that obviously should not be happening. And so that's kind of what spurred our idea of let's basically carry over that momentum from that conversation and share it with our audience here, because it's so important to really own your rate strategy. And that's something that's just been missing in Kanab as long as I've been in hospitality.
Oh yeah. It's just a race to the floor.
Yeah. No one's ever really held their value and said no, this is what I'm charging.
And it really is a great place. The wave
place.
Is right there.
Yeah.
Granted, it's permitted now, but the wave is right there. And the
Coral
Grand
Pink
Canyon.
Sand Dunes are close to there. You're close to Lake Powell. You're close to the Grand Canyon. It's an incredible
Zion's right
base
around
camp.
the road.
Yeah, right.
What is that thing that's in Colorado City or Hilldale that Breck pointed out on the way back?
Oh, that's the Grand Canyon. That's Tuaweep.
No, not Tuaweep. The other one where that cave was at, where he was like, this person, he followed him on Instagram or something. They'd stayed in a cave.
Oh yeah. That's my guest who was just on my podcast before. Clint stayed there.
Yeah. Where is that?
Cane Beds.
Yeah. I mean, just so much is slept on in that area.
Yeah.
And Kanab really could leverage itself.
Kanab's an amazing base camp. I mean,
Absolutely,
that's why we have our regional manager, Emily. She lives in Kanab.
Right.
Because that really is the best place to get to everywhere, So they've got a lot of opportunity. And so we wanted to do our part to help kind of motivate and inspire that area to really own their value.
Totally.
Okay. So my segue, I was also going to talk about Kanab, but since Spencer did that, I'll pivot. We've got some investors coming in town today that flew in from Arkansas, and we're really excited to talk to them about a possible new management opportunity. And then also we've got some development projects in the works, and potentially they could be some investors for that. So really really big. That's why
We've got a big weekend ahead of us.
Yeah, that's why I've got the suit on. Got to look professional, you know.
Gotta look the part.
And I think I'll wear the sunglasses for the meeting. I think they'll like that.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
just the display of power, you know.
Maybe I need to go pick up some Maui gems before the
You're
meeting.
gonna want to wear Maui's, yeah.
No doubt.
They'll
yeah.
be offended
No, I'll
otherwise.
swing in.
And then my personal best. We've talked about it before, but I've also got my podcast that I do, Winning the Moment, and our barber. You could see Spencer's haircut is
let me take
fresh
that
to death. Yeah, give him a 1-2.
Yeah, if you're watching, excuse me, if you're on the audio, you got to tune into the YouTube because it really is great.
You can't see the fade through audio.
No, you can't. Eli is a fade god.
Yeah, look at that thing.
Kayla texted and she's like, "Do you look hot?" And I was like, "I just got out of Eli's."
So Eli is our barber. He's also
Dumb
Rex.
man.
So he's all of the executive team's barber, and then Kyle, actually, who you guys all know, his barber's in the chair right next to him. But he had his episode with me come out on Wednesday, and he is such a brilliant person. And his episode was my most watched episode I've ever had within the first 24 hours. Yep. And so that was really exciting to see. But that being said, let's just rip right into it. So again, these are the 4 tips to maximize revenue at your hotel. And we're going to start off number 1. This is really important, and we'll talk about all the different reasons why, but it's yielding.
Yep.
And I'd hope that all of you listening knows what that means, but on the off chance that you don't.
If you're new to this.
What I mean by that is, as your room sells out, you should always be increasing your prices because of the simple rules of supply and demand. If you have a 50-room hotel and all of them are available, the rooms are less valuable than if you have 10 rooms left, right? So at some point, we generally will start our properties at 40% is usually where our yields will start, because you should never sell your first room for the same price as your last room for so many reasons.
You know what's crazy too? Because I would be willing to bet that there's a lot of people who listen to this podcast that do that.
Oh, absolutely. I would
Certainly.
say more hoteliers do that than don't.
Yeah,
right.
And that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, but this is a really great opportunity to change your perspective.
Yeah, you're just leaving money on the table.
A lot of money on the table.
Because
this is the supply and demand of being a hotel.
If you're an independent property, not a flag, because flags, because of some of their points reimbursements and things like that, they drive you to certain occupancies. It's like the Cliff Rose, for example, where we really are striving to hit 96% because that's where we max out on our points redemptions with Hilton. But for like an independent, if it was my property, I really want to be at about 85% because that just means I've priced myself appropriately, right? I'm at the exact sweet spot of rate. And what's interesting, so Breck did in his...
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about it.
So Breck, we were in Kanab, and that's really why this episode is happening, is because we were giving a rate presentation to Kanab and talking about how you should be selling your rooms for more. And Breck put up some really interesting numbers, and I think this was on a hypothetical property, 100 keys, right?
Yeah.
And we compared numbers, ADR at 85% occupancy versus ADR at 100% occupancy.
And it was also 65%. So it was like
65,
300
85.
at 65, 250 at 85, and 200 at a $200 ADR at 100% occupancy.
Correct. Yep. And what was interesting is that 85% threshold at a higher ADR, so you've sold less but made more, versus 100% occupancy at a lower ADR, which means that you just essentially tried to fill the rooms at a lower price.
Which is what you'd have to do generally to get to 100%.
To 100%, yeah. Unless there's like some off thing, like a big weekend.
Yeah,
or
special event.
Yeah, exactly. And it was more profitable and you made more money. Both were true. The bottom dollar was more and your profit was more at the 85% occupancy than the 100% occupancy.
Yeah, for the gross revenue to be more shocking, because obviously if your housekeepers are cleaning 15% less rooms, that's significant. It's going to obviously be cheaper.
Right.
And so
that means your costs are 15% lower.
less. Exactly. And so that's really where you want to strive for. And that just means you've really priced yourself right. Because if that last room, those last couple rooms are so expensive, you may not sell them, but that's okay, because the danger of being at 100% is in the event something happens, right? Air conditioning is not working, something's
Toilet is broken.
Yeah, you don't have anywhere to move that guest to, right? And so it's always nice to know that you've got that availability if you need it. And if you've priced yourself appropriately, you don't feel like you're taking a loss for moving that guest into that room. So you want to have your yields. We do ours at 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90% occupancy. And then the prices change. You can do a percentage, you could do a dollar amount. It really doesn't matter how you do it. And what's nice is that then all your OTAs are pulling from that too, right? So as your prices are increasing, so are the OTA prices. And then one thing that we do in a couple of our properties that have some struggle with like the last minute bookings is we do actually a reverse yield. So once you get to 3 days left to the booking, then it goes back down to try and increase that opportunity to get some bookings last minute. So
because people are looking for last minute deals. Like that's why Vegas.com exists, is because people are looking for last minute, which I'm sure they're reverse yielding as well down, and you can get some amazing rooms sometimes for very little.
Yeah.
But people are always looking for a deal, which is a really great way to do it, because you're again, all of this is a race against the OTAs.
Yeah.
And so if you can reverse yield, and even though it's a short booking window, which is kind of what we're seeing now in 2023, but it's a really great opportunity to still put heads in beds.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And so when we talk about yields, our preferred tool to yield is Duetto. So Duetto is our revenue management partner, and they've got an amazing platform. It integrates with a bunch of different PMSs. As you know, if you're a listener, our favorite to integrate with is WebRes Pro. And it's unbelievable how easy it is to change your prices. Also, how easy it is to look at your prices.
Yeah, it's
because
really
some
great.
PMSs, like you pull it up and there's all the rooms and the calendars, and it's like a little bit chaotic. And Duetto just simplifies it so much, where it just shows you every day what your occupancy is for that property and what your rates are at. So it's really easy to look at and be like, oh, we're 2 sales away from yielding here. Let's drop those days. Let's actually increase these days. It's actually yielding faster than we want it to.
Yep.
It makes managing your revenue just so easy. And that was actually a relationship that we made at BuyTac when we went last year. So just another plug for them and value, because really what that did is it allows us to almost replace what would need to be a full-time role of a revenue manager, because Duetto has all these integrations and all this AI. So it does so much on its own that it doesn't take someone to work 40 hours a week to manage the revenue, because so much of it is being done. And so if you don't have a management company like us with people who are in that role, right? Because it's easier for us because we've got a bunch of properties we manage. So one revenue manager can handle all of that. But if you just have your own staff and your property and you can't afford that position, then Duetto is an awesome alternative, right?
It's a really great alternative. One thing that I really love, and I've heard you say this several times, it's come up a lot. We brought in Duetto. Man, how long have we been working with Duetto? Like,
it's almost a year. Yeah, it started in October is like when it all went live.
So we presented this to our hoteliers that we manage, and some of them were worried that the rates were going to increase really high.
Yeah.
And what's nice, 2 things, is that number one, you can set a floor and a ceiling.
Yeah.
So it's never going to increase beyond something that you're comfortable selling the room
you
for.
don't want someone booking a room that you know is outpriced and undervalued.
Right, yeah. But it also won't undersell your room either.
Right.
The other thing that's cool is we had some hotel owners that were really curious, first and foremost about the technology, but then also what the guest experience was like. And they were worried that they would see these prices fluctuate and decrease and increase all over the map.
Yeah, like when that Wednesday and Thursday are different prices.
Totally
like,
different.
What the hell?
Yeah, what's going on? The way you have to think about it is almost like an airline.
That's exactly right.
And you did such a good job illustrating that. And I think Duetto also presented this to us as the airline fills up, the prices change. And never once for me, and if you are asking this question, you're a weirdo, but I've never sat down next to someone on the airplane and been like, hey, my name's Spencer. How much do you pay for that seat?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because they're afraid.
Never happened.
Well, what if the guests are in the pool and one guest paid $200 and the other guest paid $300?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think anyone in the pool or the hot tub is asking what the person paid. And also, everything costs different things at different times. Like,
Correct.
that is just business. That's the business 101,
right.
You know?
Yep.
And the other thing is that you're training your customers to understand the benefit of booking early.
Yep.
Because if they know that your rates change based on availability, then that's going to encourage them to book sooner, which is great. Because if we can sell our rooms earlier, then that's awesome.
Totally. And there's also caveats to the rate too. We'll get to that in some of our tips, like the length of stay promo. We've talked about that ad nauseum on this podcast, and really is something that you should do. In fact, we were visiting with the Canyons Collection ownership group in Kanab yesterday, and was that yesterday?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. And we're talking specifically about length of stay. And we had noticed, and I won't go too crazy into depth here, but we had noticed that the bookings had dramatically increased in September, and their busy season really is September and October. And so we thought to add value to stay in Kanab a little bit longer, we would not do a length of stay during that time. But when it starts to slow down in November, December, then we would deploy that strategy.
Yeah.
Which it really is a great rate strategy, because if you know that you're going to be busy, there's no reason to be offering some type of % off.
Yeah.
Because people are going to be coming there no matter what. The visitors will be there.
Yeah.
But to get encouraged to increase that busy season and your peak season, you might as well start offering a length of stay at that time.
Absolutely. And so Duetto is our main, that is the main revenue management tool that we like to use. But the most PMSs will also have a revenue yield management tool built into them. It's like WebRes has one. And what's interesting is you've got to find what works. Like Cougar Ridge, for example, because their room types are so different, we had them on Duetto and realized, okay, this isn't working because the other room types are filling up and it's increasing the rate of our villas too much, too fast, right? And so we've removed them from Duetto and are now using WebRes's yield management tool, and then Think also has a revenue management tool. All of our Think properties that are on that PMS, we're using that revenue management tool. And so it doesn't matter. You don't have to invest in Duetto. I think it's worth it. And if Duetto doesn't interface with your PMS, then you can just use yours. But I would say if you're shopping, like if you're a potential hotelier or you're looking to change PMSs, I would never get a PMS that doesn't have the ability to yield.
And get one that does everything at the same time, just while we're going on a tangent about PMS systems.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up. It's 2023. I don't know what the need is to have like this piecemealed system. We've taken on recent projects that, God bless them, like the Shelby Inn, the booking system is so antiquated. And granted, it's a new ownership group, right? So we're changing that and they're moving to WebRes Pro. But even
their system sucked. The Chuck Wagons, before we started working with them, theirs was so
I can't even
so
imagine.
bad. Oh my gosh, so old.
We've met hotel owners that are still doing rate cards, right? So really, just on the note of a PMS, you really should have a PMS. And again, we really love to. We're exploring a third, but WebRes Pro and Think Reservations do such a great job as being an all-in-one, just a one-stop shop. It's your property management software. It's your channel manager. Your booking engine.
Yeah, you don't want to be paying for a channel manager too.
No, and maybe you can speak just about that channel manager bullcrap, because is some.
So like Jones Quorum uses Windsurfer as our channel manager.
This is true for like any Amadeus property thing too. Jones Quorum.
Amadeus.
I have some great things to say about Amadeus.
And then also Travel Click is one, right? And then you're usually paying a pass through. So you're paying a percentage of every booking or a dollar amount for every booking. And then it just complicates it because then you've got too many layers for it to go through. So we've got a property that's on Jones Quorum and we're working on fixing their OTAs. And we probably invested over 10 hours on that this week trying to solve it, because it's like that Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other, like the PMS is like, no, it's the channel manager. And the channel manager is like, no, it's the PMS. And the OTAs are like, no, it's both
these
of them.
two.
And so it just makes it so complicated, and it always allows them to play off of each other. It allows a windsurfer to say, no, it's not us, it's Jones Quorum. It allows Jones Quorum to say, no, it's not us, it's windsurfer. And it makes it very difficult to get to the bottom of the issue, where if you're working with like a WebRes or a Think, you can just go right to the source, right to the well.
Something I feel compelled to talk about too, because my job is speaking with properties that potentially want to join our portfolio, right? And so I find myself explaining pass-through fees pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And hotel owners not knowing what that is. And so just a simplified explanation, when someone books to say your property through an OTA, that data has to get sent from that OTA to your PMS somehow. And that's usually a channel manager. So like a popular one is like Travel Click or Windsurfer, right? They charge you to relay that data, which is bullshit, by the way, because that's just moving data from one place to the other.
Yeah.
Like, there's no human interaction that's happening. And you're paying monthly for that channel manager, I might add. So it's just an arbitrary cost. And sometimes that's a percent of the booking, or sometimes it's just a flat dollar fee. So like I remember looking at Travel Click, and it was $8 per booking.
Yeah, which is crazy.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
And then you get like into the whole matrix of what is your OTA booking, right? Like we took on one property just for marketing, but we seem to find ourselves more and more in the mix. They're a local property. It's a big glamping property. Their OTA booking was north of 60%.
Yeah, that was wild.
And they were paying pass-through fees because they were using Travel Click. It's a 115 key property.
And just to relay what you're saying, they were paying a pass-through fee on something they're already paying a commission for.
Exactly. Yep.
That was going through a completely different channel. So they were literally like double paying.
Yeah, they were paying 18% on the booking plus $8 per booking. Which is just like, let me gouge you at any opportunity. Right?
I remember Breck and I doing the math once for a big property that was using Travel Click, and it was like, oh my God, they're spending like $64,000 a year in pass-through charges. When you do the math, it's pretty wild. And before we go to tip number 2, which I'll let Spencer talk about, Res Nexus. If you're listening,
that was the third one. Yeah.
If you're listening, you could be one of our premier PMSs that we offer.
You want to
and
move
talk
into
about.
the mix? Well, they're a Salt Lake company. Maybe we should just have them on the podcast just to say,
Yeah,
what's up?
let's get it started. So
Actually, gonna
we
write that
do
down.
have property. We have 2 properties on ResNexus now. We just moved Water Canyon RV to ResNexus, and it was awesome. And like
Yeah.
their booking system is incredible. We are just using like basically an OTA for that RV park before. And ResNexus was great, easy to work with. I know one of our virtual GMs absolutely loves ResNexus because that was a system she had used in the past, and they're a local Utah company, which is great. But I think I would love for them to kind of slide into third base there. And so ResNexus, if you're listening, let's get you on the podcast.
Yeah, I completely agree. This has actually been a really cool podcast. I like the reverse engineering. Start with the tips because it's so much meat. Okay, so we'll get into tip number 2.
Or if you're vegan, it's like so much potatoes.
Bro, it's like so much tofu, lots of falafel.
As long as you're trying your best.
If you're trying your best, you're vegan, actually. You can eat whatever you please so long as you're trying your best.
And if you have questions on that, you're going to want to reach out to Leah at thevibrantteam.com.
She can give you a full rundown.
Yep,
Correct.
exactly.
Yep. Okay, so tip number 2 for your rate and revenue strategy is just own your value. Really what this, I don't want to say stay in your lane, but you do need to own your value.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean if you're a 2-star property, you really can't play in the same sandboxes like a Hilton Curio, right? But at the same time, if you're a Hilton Curio or a 4-diamond level, you can't operate in a way that you're also racing to the bottom.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of this stems from our conversation with Canab, which happens to be like a race to the bottom. But when you can have a paradigm shift, which is own your value, and Canab is a great case study for that because there's 100 different amazing things that you can't do anywhere else that are all Instagrammable
And there's a major
moments.
company there, Best Friends, who's like on the New York Stock Exchange.
Correct.
Like they have the consumers.
Is Best Friends
Yeah.
they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange?
They rang that bell.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
There's some good conspiracy theories about that.
I know. Okay, so and I'll touch on this. The reason that Canab has the issue is because no one has decided to own their value.
Right.
When a lower tier property drops to $60 and everyone follows, that's what causes the problem.
Right.
Someone has to be willing to say, "Oh no, like my property is this much to stay at, no matter what this property is priced
Right.
at." And that's what the dwellings in Laverkin did such a good job of, because the average rate mix in Laverkin is probably sub $80.
Yeah, I was gonna say 75 was my number.
It's not good. And they've had moments where their ADR has been up to $300 now. Obviously, this year we're in a down year and it's probably closer to $200, but it's still way above their average for the area, right?
Well, and they own their value too. I
Yeah.
mean, they are definitively the best product in Laverkin.
100%.
But they're not willing to play in the same sandbox as the Hotel Zion Inn.
Right.
Which is such a funny thing, right? By the way, because the Hotel Zion Inn, just speaking about owning your value, the Hotel Zion Inn, I don't know what they're priced at, but Red Fort is going in behind there.
Yeah.
And Kayla and I were driving up to, I can't remember where we were going. I think we were just on a drive. We drove past it, and I was like, man, how sad is it that Red Fort, which is the best place you can get food in St. George,
Absolutely. Yeah.
is going in there. And I was like, that absolutely kills their brand.
Yeah. They should have called it something else, so they didn't have to diminish
Absolutely.
their other brand with the
The
association.
brand in
with
St.
that
George
one.
is so good. And then when
Yeah.
you associate it with that hotel, because the hotel product is so poor, right?
If I didn't know the Red Fort people, I would just assume someone stole their name and was trying to copy them, and it was someone else. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I would think too. Yeah. So own your value, right? If you're the best product in the market, be the best product in the market, and then have assets to show that off too.
That's what I was going to say.
We harp on video and some type of media and a good website and collateral that you can use in perpetuity, right? We just had Sean Cannell on again. By the way, shout out to Sean Cannell.
Hey, shout out, Sean.
Yep. We just had him on, and
Sean, it is actually Friday in St. George.
that is a Friday in Utah. Yes,
And
sir.
It's 10:43.
I'll text you and let you know.
I just remembered I still have my sunglasses on.
We're keeping them on. No doubt.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to cut your
No,
camera
you're good.
off.
The moral of the story here is just have some type of self-awareness for whatever product you are and stay within those realms. And one thing that I did like when we were at Canyons, the owner was very conscious about, we know we're heading into our busy season
Yeah.
and we don't want to price this room type into this this ballpark. I can't remember if it was like the
Oh yeah, he was saying like I don't want to overprice it because
Right.
this particular room is like a small room that Europeans love.
Yeah.
It's called a cozy room,
Uh-huh.
and they're like I want to make sure it doesn't get above X,
Right.
Because then that consumer is not going to have a good experience.
And he had the self-awareness to say, if I
Yeah.
walked into that,
Mm-hmm.
I would be pissed if I paid X amount of dollars.
And
for
I
it,
think
right?
what you've got to do for yourself is you got to have something that allows your property to have that value. You can't just say my property's worth X and not have a value statement to why that is,
Yeah.
whether it's your customer service or it's your amenities or it's your restaurant, like whatever it is that makes you special, own that. And if you really do have that thing that makes you more valuable or makes your property more desirable, then do not play in the game and trust in your value.
Yeah.
Because the best way to think of it is like a top tier property, like a Ritz-Carlton or a Waldorf. They're never going to look at what someone below their property offerings
Never.
is pricing at because it's
They compare
irrelevant.
against the Four Seasons.
It's irrelevant to their consumer base, right? Like the Waldorf Ritz-Carlton consumer doesn't care what the Hampton Inn is priced at. And so
because
you,
they never looked at the Hampton.
right. And so you have to think of yourself in that same way. Even if you aren't that level of service, you're somewhere level of service,
Yep.
and there's a property who's a lower level of service than you.
Right.
So if you're at a 3-star and a 2-star is playing that game, you do not have to play that game. You can own your value. So just don't get caught in the trap of racing to the bottom. Hold strong. And oftentimes a guest will look at a price and let's say there's a lower tier property at 99 and you're at 199.
Yep.
I can speak for myself. If I see that, I'm thinking this property must be twice as nice as that one.
Yeah.
And so it's worth the difference.
What do I get for?
Exactly.
Right.
Obviously they're doing something special to be able to price themselves in the same space
Yep.
twice as much. And so just own your value and don't give in to temptation.
Yeah, I completely agree. You want to do tip 3?
Yeah. So tip 3 is maximize all available funnels. And this, you could just go on a tangent. I mean, there's
This could be its own episode.
it really could. Because
You could just go through our whole media library.
right. There
And
are
that's there
so many funnels. And I'll share a story. I won't say who, but we are, as you guys know, our listeners, we have a relationship with Stash. Stash is an incredible program. And if they're willing to have you, the answer should always be yes.
Absolutely.
Now, there's a lot of properties that they're not willing to have. So you don't get the opportunity. But if
Yep.
Stash has said to you, we would like to represent you, and you say no, I can't for the life of me determine why that would be.
It should just be an automatic yes.
Because that is just another funnel. And not only does it have its own internal website that they build a microsite for you, they will also create a Google Hotel ad listing for you because it is like a membership pricing. They can be priced lower than OTAs. They do not have to have parity with your OTAs,
Yep.
which allows them to show themselves on like a Google Hotel ad at the lowest available rate. There will be no one that can in that avenue of solicitation be lower than Stash. So you already have their microsite.
Yep.
Then you have the lowest price available on Google Hotel ads. And then in addition to that, they have 1.2 million members
Right.
who like to stay at their properties. So that is just a plethora of opportunity
Yep.
that only costs you. It's like 0.06 cents per stay or some ridiculously low number that is insignificant at best. And so let's just call it 8%.
That's a bill you would love to pay.
Every time, because
Yep.
if you're paying it, it means you have made money.
Right.
So let's just say it averages out to 8% commission. Your OTAs are more than that, right? And the OTAs
Double.
aren't building you a microsite, and they don't have all those members who are specifically looking for your type of property,
Right.
nor will they do email campaigns for you unless you pay for them, right? So, and we had a property say, yeah, I think that's too many. I think she may have used the word funnel. And I was just shocked
Yeah.
because it's like, that's the whole idea.
That's the
We
point.
need as many arrows pointing to this property as possible.
Yep.
And so you just want to make sure whatever is out there, get on it. Like I don't love the OTAs and I wish they didn't exist, but they do exist. So be on all of them.
If we're all fishing in the same hospitality pond, wouldn't it make sense to bring as many rods as possible?
Yeah.
Right?
If we all stood around a lake and inside the lake represented customers and we with our fishing pools represented our hotel,
Yep.
the hotel with the most lines in the water
It
is
will win.
going to catch the most fish.
Absolutely.
That's just all there is to it. You may even be a more skilled fisherman.
Yep.
If you only have one rod,
Right.
the odds of you beating a novice fisherman with 20 rods is about 0.
The odds are very low. And that's why we're saying you need to diversify this as much as possible. What's cool about this conversation too is it's kind of a bottom up scenario.
Yeah.
Like we've been talking about, you need these types of funnels. Really to deploy these as well as possible, it all trickles back to you need to have a centralized PMS that works. Right?
Yeah,
like
that's true.
We're talking about Stash. Stash integrates one-to-one directly with WebRes Pro. We're talking about your OTAs and yielding and rates, right? Duetto has an integration. the way that you manage your channels through WebRes Pro or Think Reservations, it's all done in one place, right? You don't have to bounce back and forth to these channel managers that are shitty, right? Like you just don't have to do that. And so this has actually been really cool to just see how all of this kind of stacks on top of each other. And some of this might sound Greek to maybe some of the listeners that are new in hospitality or things like that. Shameless plug, that's why we exist.
Yep.
You can run your own hotel without us. No problem. It's just easier with us.
Absolutely. Yep. And ding, 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 ding. Bonus tip. Bonus tip today. You didn't know you're getting it. You thought you're getting 4 tips. Turns out you're getting 5.
Whoa.
It's a big deal.
No way.
Everyone's excited. It's the first bonus tip we've ever done. And let me tell you what this bonus tip is. It is incredibly exciting. I cannot wait to share it. As you just said that about the PMS, and Spencer doesn't actually know the tip.
My gosh,
so he is just as excited. He has just as much anticipation as you. Bonus tip. Your website has to be good.
Oh
because if your website isn't good, none of this shit matters.
None.
If you have it's like if you had 20 rods in the pond and you had no bait, then you actually will be outfished by the one guy with the one rod.
Correct, yeah.
And so if we're going to point all these funnels somewhere, that somewhere should be your website. And mind you, that Spencer talked about, I don't know if it's in this one or not, the law of 7, which Sean
a little
Cannell,
bit on this one.
Shout out Sean, said it's actually like the law of 300.
Yep.
That people have so many touch points. So they're going to check booking.com and they're going to check Expedia and they're going to check TripAdvisor and they're going to check Orbitz and they're going to check Stash and they're going to ask their friend.
And then they're going to check Expedia again.
And then they're going to check the DMO. All of that will eventually at some point lead them to your site. Even if they opt to book somewhere else, your site is going to make them decide between you and maybe one of those other 50 hotels on booking.com.
Exactly.
And so if your site is not compelling and does not share a compelling story, then really none of this matters.
Absolutely.
Truthfully. Like it really doesn't. And even Stash, that's really why our partnership started with them, is because there are these incredible properties whose digital presence is so poor that they cannot work with them because that's where the relationship starts.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't start in the property, it starts online. So your online presence needs to be as good or better than the actual experience. And that's like how with 505 in Eugenia we've talked about, he wanted to be a part of Stash, but was only on Airbnb. It wasn't possible. And so then they introduced us to Jordan at the 505 so we could create a digital ecosystem that allowed him to participate in Stash. And I highly recommend go check out their website. It's incredible. So you're welcome. Incredibly exciting. It took 36 episodes before the first bonus tip, and you just got it. That's exciting stuff.
That's very exciting, yeah. If anyone wants an accountability mirror to give an audit on your website too, reach out to us. We will shamelessly tell you if it sucks or if it's awesome.
Yeah.
We've seen websites that we had nothing to do with that were like, oh, damn.
That's good.
That's a great website.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Yep. So that's a great tip. Your bonus tip led right into tip number 4.
Yes, it did.
Actually, Tip number 4 is to have some type of compelling offer. That offer has to live on your website because just like Cody said, these guests are going to look at 20 different just funnels before even making it to your website. Or maybe they make it to your website first and then vet you with other funnels because that's just what guests do. They're going to price shop, right? You have to have some type of compelling offer to get the direct booking. That direct booking circumvents the OTAs, right? So you're now more profitable on that. You've made more money, at least 18% or more. And if you've set up your system, just like we talked about, you avoided a pass-through fee. And now the guests are going to have a better experience because your website's been optimized.
Yeah.
And they know what to expect. And so you're not going to get those stupid calls or bad expectations set or questions about where's the pool and you don't have a pool. Right? Like you've done the groundwork.
People's attention spans are so short that you need to hit them with that offer instantly.
Immediately.
Right? Because average time on a website is sub 45 seconds.
Right.
So you build this great website because there are the people who will like go through all the pages and see what all you have to offer. But there's also people who just get there, scan it, and they're like, I'm out.
Yeah. People make a buying decision just based off of your brand identity within 7 seconds. Now they might stay there longer just like out of kindness or they're still exploring. But within 7 seconds, and on our websites, we have our pop-ups pull up within 4 seconds.
Yeah.
So that they can see immediately the compelling offer. And sometimes that changes, right? So like right now, we have length of stay promos that are out.
We have a pool promo at Cougar Ridge.
Yeah, pool promo, Cougar Ridge. So all of this is just built to get the direct booking. And then again, all of this is just leverage where your channels, right? So you can start advertising these promotions through social media, having optimized video, using video
I think
assets.
Wildflower just did one yesterday that was like the length of stay promo on their Instagram, right? So then the consumer sees that, goes to the website, is reminded of that, and then boom, they make the booking.
Totally.
And so what we do is we put together an annual marketing plan for all of our properties. So we want to strategically be prepared for the year. So in January at every property, we say, here's what we're going to do this year. Here's all the things. We're talking about our length of stay promos at that time. We're talking about our ad spends. We're talking about our budgets. We're talking how many social posts are we doing? How many emails are we doing? How many articles are we writing? So that way, when we go back and look at it, we know this is what we said we're going to do, and here's how we actually did. Good, bad, or indifferent. We're just going to show you the numbers, right? And so part of that marketing plan is determining what that compelling offer is going to be. We already have that mapped out an entire year in advance. Now, not to say that we won't change it, because if the climate changes or the industry changes or an offering becomes available,
technology changes,
then certainly
new opportunity.
We will update. But we go into it knowing. So when we look at our dashboard for our clients, we're always looking at that promo revenue. As well as our direct ad spend return, because really all of our marketing efforts are meant to drive them to the compelling offer. That is ultimately what we're trying to sell.
Yeah, and we change all the time. Like when we started the year, we didn't have anything to do with UGC. And now we're all in on it, right? And so that's actively part of our marketing strategies that we're deploying to all of our properties. So it changes all the time.
Anything else you want to touch on compelling offer?
No.
Okay, so then we'll just go through and run them one more time for you. I'll do 1 and 3. Spencer's going to do 2 and 4. These are your 4 tips to maximize revenue at your property. Tip number 1, make sure you're utilizing some sort of yield.
Tip number 2 is to own your value.
Tip number 3 is to maximize all potential funnels.
And tip number 4, have some type of compelling offer.
Yeet.
Cody just learned what the word yeet is a couple months ago, and it's been using it.
That was an excellent execution.
She also learned what the gritty is.
Yeah, I did think it was giddy. I did.
Yeah,
in fact, that's a true
giddy.
story. Well, that was a great episode. I think that brought immense value to the consumers. You're able to digest that sucker in about 40 minutes. So that's awesome. That's like a perfect amount of time.
Yeah, that's really great.
You can hit half of it on your way to work, finish the next half on your way home.
Force your staff to listen to it.
Yep. Like and
No
subscribe. Make sure you stay involved. And ultimately, thank you for listening. I mean, we're at episode 36.
Yeah, forever grateful.
We're more than halfway to our first year. I mean, it's really exciting. More and more downloads every week. And we hope we're making a difference for you. If there's something you want us to talk about or a question that you have, reach out through Instagram or comment on YouTube. Shout out to Spencer and his email or on LinkedIn. Whatever questions you guys have answered, we want this platform to bring as much value to you as possible. So if there's something you're struggling with or you want help with, you just want us to talk it out on this episode, please let us know and we will absolutely do that.
Yes, sir. All right, everyone, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and we'll catch you next time.